Fever, chills, shortness of breath, loss of taste or smell. What is stay at home and isolate? Correct!
Coronavirus for 200.
Inability to stay awake, persistent pain or pressure in chest, trouble breathing. What is seek immediate help? Correct!
Coronavirus for 500.
Crippling and potentially dead infectious disease eliminated the United States with vaccination.
What is the polio vaccine?
Correct!
I'll take coronavirus for 700.
The Daily Double! Should I take the coronavirus vaccine? Wait. Hold up. This is not a game. It's time for serious discussions. We have coronavirus vaccines, but not everyone is comfortable taking them. Here's the facts. Based on what has been proven about vaccines for other diseases, COVID-19 vaccine may help keep you from getting seriously ill, even if you do get the virus. Getting vaccinated also may protect people around, particularly those at greater risk for severe illness from COVID-19. We don't yet have all of the answers. Get informed, talk to your healthcare physician, and make the right decision for you. This is a message supported by the Washington State Department of Health.
You're listening to Rainier Avenue Radio.world. I'm Granville Emerson along with my partner, Ronald Pepe King. And we host the show Lidline Sports right here on Rainier Avenue Radio.world, where we talk about football, basketball, local sports, national sports, Seahawks, UW, Seattle U Redhawks, Garfield Bulldogs, all that and more right here on Midline Sports on Rainier Avenue Radio.world.
We got the feeling now.
Yeah. R&B, soul, funk, 50s, 60s, 70s, 80s. We give you all that and more on Star Time. Join me, Paul Pearson, for a 2-hour trip through the history of R&B. A new episode every week on Wednesday at 2 p.m. Come and get the feeling on Star Time on Rainier Avenue Radio.world.
Keen Own honors and supports elders and families by offering culturally Asian and linguistically appropriate healthcare services in a healthy living community. Originally established in 1985 as the nation's first bilingual Chinese-American nursing home, Keen Own now provides a full continuum of care, including wellness and education programs, home care, assisted living apartments, rehabilitative services, and long-term care. For more information, please visit keenon.org. That's KINON.org. This has been a public service announcement from Rainier Avenue Radio.world.
You're listening to Rainier Avenue Radio.world.
Welcome to Rainier Avenue Radio. This is Afternoons with Monique, recording live in Seattle, Washington, every Thursday at 1 p.m.
Good afternoon, Seattle. This is Monique from Rainier Avenue Radio, broadcasting live on Afternoon with Monique. Today's guest is the last guest for the Asian Heritage Month interview series, Willon Lew. He's long been an active contributor to the Seattle AAPI landscape, a respect member of the community. He's an at-large board member at OCA, a national organization dedicated to advancing social, political, and economic well-being of Asian Pacific Americans in the United States. Please welcome to Afternoons with Monique, Willon Lew. Hi, Willon. How are you doing today?
Okay, how you doing?
I'm well. You look well.
Well, as best as I can.
Right? So we met each other through our good friend, the late Al Sugiyama, who ran Center for Career Alternatives, of which you are also a founding board member, right?
Yes.
Yeah. So what was your involvement with CCA and EDI?
Oh, okay. If you go back a ways, Alan was in between jobs at the time. I mean, this is a long, long time ago. So he got his good buddies to help him put together this organization that he would later call CCA. And then it was one of those things where you would sit around a kitchen table and he'd share with us his vision and everything. And he wanted to help young people. Basically, the term was youth at risk. People, society was losing a lot of young people. They'd drop out of high school drop out. I mean, they wouldn't continue their education. And he wanted to find a safe landing place for all these kids, get them back in school. And thus he started Center for Career Alternatives. And then we got a bunch of good people on the board and started developing the programs like that. I was on his board for about, I don't know, 13, 14 years or so. And then I had to go on in my career as well. But Alan went on to, bring the organization to new heights. He was basically, God, I'm getting some feedback there. But one of the best honors was that he was invited to the White House twice.
Wow.
And get this, is under a Republican administration, Ronald Reagan. And
wow, so really?
His people went to the Rose Garden and was greeted there and all that. And he was recognized, the organization was recognized as one of the top organizations to help youth outreach. So that was very exciting. And what I appreciated is his ability to navigate between social service and business. So when you went to his annual dinners, you would have at the end you'd have all the major players like Boeing, McDonald's, which is the company I work for, banks, insurance companies, and one of those things that you would not normally find partnership.
Right. I remember.
Yeah,
he was very good at that. He sat me next to the casino people because, he wanted to build a strong community, not just in terms of networking, but also financially, that he wanted to empower the community in every way. So, and you were a part of this friendship circle with Al. So you were instrumental in building the Asian American AAPI community in Seattle. You are right now on the board of OCA. And you were also, I think you were teaching or mentoring people at Executive Development Institute for a time.
Yeah, I did that for a few years. Alan later on became the executive director of that institute, which is a real fine institution. And basically it offered young professionals an opportunity, basically catered to Asian American or Asian individuals getting onto their careers and how to network, how to brand themselves in a corporate world. Because there's very few of us prior to that generation that had that opportunity. And those of us that were able to, many of those were willing to share what they learned, be it a negative or positive experience, to educate the younger generation. And it's kind of nice to see that we're seeing many Asian Americans rise up in the corporate world.
Right. From that backdrop.
Yeah.
What's
not
that?
as many as I'd like to see, but nonetheless, you're seeing them move into middle management positions, and ultimately it'll catapult them into the higher positions.
Right. And I know that you had, you have a JD from the UW. Did you ever practice law?
No, actually, I have kind of a pre-architecture degree too, non-professional degree, as well as a JD degree. But hey, I was not the best student. And
I'm sure you're just being modest.
Man, once I got in there, I said, oh my God, did I make a mistake? But I got through, because I met a lot of good friends and everything like that. But then that degree served me well. It got me into one of my first jobs, which was with the Human Rights Commission, and we were investigating discrimination complaints. This was back in the 70s, and then a transition from the public sector into the private sector.
And how did you
How did what?
How did you transition into human resources role?
Well, actually, when you're dealing with employment law, you're dealing with a lot of regulation involving oversight into how employers treat their employees. And so that goes into employee relations, it goes into EEO law. And what happens is that many at that time, many companies were looking for that type of background, and they were generally placed in the area of human resources. That's how I got started.
Oh, I see.
Mhm.
Now, I know that you are a second generation Chinese American, and you've worked for one of the most well-recognized names in the services industry the world over, the McDonald's Corporation,
Yeah.
as a senior director, HR, human
Yeah.
resources. What did you do in that role? I mean, what does that mean to be a director for McDonald's?
Well, during my last 4 years at McDonald's, I was basically based out of Tokyo, Japan.
Mm-hmm.
And it was a situation where it was a Japanese-run organization,
Mm-hmm.
and the guy who owned it was a guy named Den Fujita. Now, he's Japanese, but he had a American orientation as well. Tell you a little story, at least what I heard from the successors there, is that he used to be one of General MacArthur's translators.
Oh, really?
Post-war, yeah. And in order to get into that market, an American company could not just go into Japan and say, hey, I want to open up your business here.
Right.
You had to have the connections. And of course he did. Being a translator for General MacArthur, he had influence. And
Right.
he had an orientation towards both Japanese and American thinking. So we sold restaurants to him. He would have been the exclusive owner. And at the time of his passing, he built that organization to 3,500 restaurants. That's a lot.
Seriously?
Seriously.
Wow.
He basically was the only license, what we call the licensee, that happened to have the whole country of Japan. And upon his passing, his estate was one of the wealthiest estates.
Oh my God.
In Japan. So what happens there is that the Japanese business had to get integrated into a global economy, because McDonald's is global. And McDonald's Corporation purchased 49% of the shares of that. The Japanese shareholders own 51%, so they maintain Japanese control.
Right.
But then the Americans, which I'm the part of the American side, gave it a big shot in the arm with the financing, everything like that. So I and a bunch of other members throughout the world had an opportunity to fly in there to kind of acculturate it to a global economy. One of which was, of all things, teaching English. I didn't teach English, but part of it was to find people who can converse in English, because that was the language of the world in business right now. And another thing that I was responsible for was sending many of the staff throughout to 4 different countries to learn what it's like to work outside the Japanese system. So we worked with England, we worked with China, we worked with Canada, and of course, US. That's where we'd send our people. Yeah.
Well, that's exciting. How, I met you at functions and I know you for a while now, but I didn't know some of the backdrop and your experiences, which I am looking forward, and I was looking forward to interviewing you today because I want to learn these stories. I knew it would be interesting. As an Asian American working for one of the most iconic American food chain store, whose philosophy affect not only Americans' diet but culture, American culture. The McDonald's arc is the most recognized symbol the world over. So that kind of culture, and you bring in your Asian American perspective. I'm just also curious. How was your experience working with high-level executives within McDonald's?
It was pleasant. I liked it. I liked the value system. I liked their mission statements. I liked their strategies. But you got to realize that the high-level executives are not that far away from what goes on in the restaurants. So it's interesting. The CEO or the president of McDonald's comes to visit And at that time, I was working in our Northwest Territory region of the country, which was Alaska, Idaho, Montana, Oregon, Washington, and some parts of Northern California. When they would come, they would not spend a lot of time coming to the regional office. They would be out, get
on the field, survey, looking.
Yeah, looking, talking with franchise owners, listening to their problems, listening to their successes. And they would also go in what we call shop the competition. So we'd go to some places like Red Apple grocery stores and see what are they doing at that time. What were they doing that was very successful with their customers?
Right.
It's things like that. And then sometimes the worst part, I would say, for your diet is that we'd shop our competition. So we get together and we go out to Jack in the Box, Wendy's,
see what they do.
See what they do, taste their products.
Yeah.
We go out and within an hour we'd be eating all their food just to taste it. And after a while, when I first did this, I thought, God, great, free food and all that other stuff.
There's a lot of food.
Man, then after the first 60 minutes, you said, oh, I can't do this any longer. But you taste what the competition is selling. And so when you ask me that question, what was it like to work with a high-level executive? You better know what the people on the ground are thinking, because he doesn't want to talk with you about vision or strategy. That's already set. He wants to talk to you about what's going on in the restaurant.
Execution to the very end.
Yeah, you got it.
That's amazing. I sometimes talk to friends and they would tell me, oh, I want to open a business and, have it running on its own. I can just relax at a beach and direct the business from afar. I've always thought, to have a thriving business, you have to be on the ground with the foot soldiers and to be in the moment, in the field with the workers, to motivate them to work with them, to understand their plights.
Yeah, not only that, the franchise owners are encouraged to work not only with their internal workers, but to get out in the community, and share things such as social responsibility, work with the schools, get engaged with the community. And that's what I found real interesting, because part of my role was to do that. And that's how I was able to work with Al a lot as his organization developed. Basically, he was on my budget. So he secured enough trust with our executives that they said, hey, we will fund some of his programs every year. Wow. Well, that was nice. Al had that ability.
Yeah.
But guess what? In return, it's like business. You invest in something, you want the return on the investment as well.
Sure.
So what happens is that Al partnered with us. Instead of asking for a donation, he became a business partner in a way, kind of like a social and economic business partner.
Right.
He would help us with one of the toughest business challenges that we had, and which is tough right now, and that is finding good people.
Right.
And so labor. He would refer to us a lot of labor, including managers who wanted an opportunity. On top of that, we would have his people come in and talk to us about gang violence, talk about graffiti, talk about how we deal with certain sections of the city where there's a lot of gang activity.
Right.
We work with that community to address this. Can we offer jobs to these folks and get them on the right track? So it's a nice combination.
What is Seattle Human Edge? I'm just changing what you're currently doing. What is Seattle Human Edge?
Well, Seattle Human Edge, let me tell you this. I retired from McDonald's in 2011. All right. So after I retired, some people wanted me to consult for them. All right. And you actually get paid.
Yeah. Right.
Yeah. So I had to create an entity for the business income and tax and everything like that.
As a consultant.
Yeah. So that's what had happened. So I had several clients, and keeps you in spending money, so you don't have to dip into your 401k or anything like that.
Right. No, I understand that.
Yeah.
Plus, you have a lot of wisdom to share from your experience. So I would imagine you want to pass that on to some people if they want to learn. And I'm one of those people.
Yeah, if they want to learn. Not everyone wants to learn, okay?
Mm-hmm.
But, I quite frankly, when I see this younger generation, I see the work that they do and the knowledge that they've acquired in such a short period of time.
Right.
So, for instance, let's talk about Asian American history.
Yes.
Okay. When I first met Al at 19 years old, he had a lot of leadership capabilities at that time. He was probably around a year older than me.
Mm-hmm.
He was at that time a 20-year-old, maybe he was 19, organizing a college in terms of their curriculum. And that was having the first Asian American history class at Seattle Community College. And he would deal with the highest levels of the college to try to get this, or in this case, force that into the curriculum, which they didn't have a priority on.
Right.
And so he was able to garner that type of support from the students and everything. But at the time, you can see his organizing skills, you can see his communication skills, and you can see his people skills. And those are qualities a lot of people don't think about. Maybe they think about it later on after they graduated and they're in the workplace and they're trying to develop those skills. He had that going for him at a young age.
Right.
But I was just minding my own business, and he comes up to me and grabs me, along with guys like Frankie Aragon,
right. Aragon.
Yeah, he gets us involved in everything like that. And so we helped start this Asian American history class, which is really basic. And it focused on 3 ethnic groups within the Asian community: Chinese, Japanese, and Filipinos. We didn't know what Vietnamese people were, other than we were at a war with them.
Right.
And of course, that was before 1976 when the Vietnamese came over.
Right. So that was before.
Yeah. So we spent, you can spend a whole year studying about this and you would only scratch the surface of history. But then what I see young people right now, they have access to all this information and they're so knowledgeable of things, and they dig into issues that I've never even seen before. So it's remarkable. And, technology is part of that reason as well.
What can you give me an example of what kind of thing do they dig into that you were not looking at before?
Well, let's take this. One of the irritating things was how Hollywood treats Asian Americans in terms of their profiles back then. All right. From the or even before that, the 40s, 50s, 60s, 70s, even some of it today. All right. So as a person growing up in that era, you see those images of yourself and you feel helpless to do anything about it. And then it impacts people's perception of you, what they see in Hollywood, on TV. But now the creativity in this is that you got the Asian American scholars who will go in there and explain the rationale and the impact those images have on adults down to young children.
Right. The psyche, the perception people might have of Asian Americans in this country.
Correct.
And
so
that links,
well, what happens there, Monique, is they give you rationale, they give you logic, and they give you ability to articulate not only your concerns, but the concerns of others.
Right.
Yeah.
That's very cool. And, that brings me to my next question. What are your thoughts on the ongoing attacks against AAPI community?
My immediate thinking was, how could this happen in 2020 It was not even this bad in the 1960s and 70s. It didn't involve physical assaults. So it kind of stuns me, and it tells me how fragile our society can be and how influenced it could be by their religions. It's not it's like we haven't learned anything from it. But fortunately, we live in this part of the country where Asians had the ability to contribute to the community around here. So despite the fact we have some of these vicious attacks on Asian individuals, I think we have more support from the community than we can imagine.
Right now, I'm seeing more and more of that coming on TV, the media, and corporations.
Exactly. And of course, look how quickly they passed the COVID-19 anti-hate bill against Asians, how fast that came up.
The attention that this issue had been getting is touching to me also. I've had this whole month, I dedicated this May to Asian Heritage Month, and I talked about this issue of AAPI hate and violence throughout the month, because, I think part of media is to bring awareness to problems such as this and shine the spotlight on it.
Yeah, exactly. And what I try to do is connect that with three of the things I'm working on with right now. First of all, I'm not a consultant, because I did come up with an issue of cancer that set me back a little bit. So that's okay right now. But I've been asked to participate on a board as well as other things. And I'm trying to connect these three together. And one of them is racism, that connects the very unique organizations. One is the World Ventilator Foundation that I'm working on. It's a group of clinicians, business people, and physicians who created a very durable, very economically priced ventilator geared to save lives during the pandemic. And I won't go into details on that, but I've been working with these folks for about a year. We've never met face to face. Everything was done through technology. Okay. And,
amazing.
And the United States Army gave us $100,000 because we won a contest for this device.
Oh, did you?
Yeah.
So who do you serve, the ventilator group that you are a part of?
Well, we're organized as a 501c3 nonprofit, which from a business standpoint, kind of challenging. But what we want to do is manufacture enough of these that we can donate them to areas in need. And you'd be surprised what the world needs in terms of medical equipment. At the same time, I'm working with a high school friend who created an organization called Centric Limited, and that's a business. And what they're trying to do is build affordable housing throughout the world using bamboo as a primary source of materials to build housing. Now, as explained to me, bamboo is like a weed. It doesn't take long
to grow
and versus a tree. So it's very economical, and with the economy the way it is, the price of lumber has just shot up.
Right.
And so he's being contacted by a lot of financiers around the world about his concept. And the third is OCA, that civil rights group that I'm working with right now. So when you take these three together, there's an interface here where they can all intersect. These are different types of people. And the intersection is what I call racism. Okay.
Right.
Racism now is being considered a healthcare concern by many.
Right.
And so the three entities I'm working on, the intersection is healthcare. So hopefully we can pull these guys together.
Well, wonderful. I'm glad that I had you come on today. If people want to learn more about the organization, one is called World Ventilator Foundation. The other one is OCA and Seattle Human Edge. you can all Google Willon Lew online and find out more about his work. My show is coming to an end, and next up, I have Shattering the Glass Ceiling. This is Monique Lee at Afternoons with Monique on Rainier Avenue Radio. And my guest today was saying goodbye is Willon Lew. Thank you so much for joining us on our show, Willon.
Okay, thank you, Monique.
Yeah, thank you for sharing your story. Okay, have a good one. Everybody, good afternoon.